the fluting and hopefully ornamental carving jig. It comprises of some movable stops which can dictate how far we can travel along parallel to the wood to make the flutes. We can rotate the assembly here to get various positions of this small little, well, it's an engraving gizmo from Parkside. It's got a thread on it on the front there. I took off a collar that was on and it exposed this thread, and I made a wooden collar for this to screw into. I'll show you closer up. Now this is a stabilising base, and this goes underneath that beam here to stop it from tilting. And it's as smooth as I can get it a bit smoother. And by making it smooth, it's not too bad a movement. And because I've set it at the correct thickness of the wood here, there's very little play as I move this along, and it can be adjusted height wise at the back with 2 screws. So we can set a stop here, how long we want the flute, and I've made it so that we can tighten onto the bed of the lathe without making marks in the bed. And I've put a subsurface underneath here of a thin piece of plywood, so I'm clamping the plywood, and I've fixed the plywood at that end and it's free to move up and down at this end, and that makes it pretty rigid once that's tightened up. And that can give us our stops for however long we want our flutes to be. Now there's quite a few movements here. We have a vertical movement, and by locking this here, and a fine adjustment here, we can move the engraver up and down finely in increments, so we can hopefully reasonably precise. Just slacken that off a bit. We can move that up again more precisely, rather than just, if I slacken this off here, we can make it move reasonably quickly, less finer adjustment. And then when we come approximate to where we want it, we just lock it into position and then fine adjustment. So we've got vertical movement, and we have also a twisting moment here. Hopefully that will create some interesting shapes in the wood when the router cut is in. And we've also got a twisting moment here, which again can create an arc. And finally we have this well, I don't know what to call it really, a cam, and that's the depth of cut control there. It's just a simple cheapest chips cable gland, and we can adjust the depth of cut with the cutter projecting through. We can adjust the depth of cut. The wood, it rides against the wood there, and you can adjust the depth of cut by screwing the cap. Here we've got a fine adjustment here, which gives us a radius, so we can increase that radius. So when we rotate that by hand, there's some stops there. As you can see, hopefully you can see the stops. So we can create a circular cut. So we can incorporate all those different trajectories of cut and create hopefully interesting shapes, which I'll hopefully demonstrate in the next video. We can adjust the stops in any way around that circumference, and we can increase the radius of cut by just making this fine adjustment here. So we can do faceplate work, and we can do parallel work or spindles. So I'll just drop that down, undo that at the back. I'll probably put a knob on that, I've just lost it for the time being. There we go. And put it on the centre and then lock it in place. And now we can move our rest, our stop should I say, and put our wood between centres, and then we can lock this in place. And simply move it backwards and forwards, and because we can touch the wood with the gland, the plastic gland at the front, and we can create very thin cuts and gradually increase the depth of cut as we move the jig along. Now if you've noticed on the subframe here to hold the beam up, I've created a cutout here so I can remove the tailstock quite easily and take the strop out if I want. As you can see, that's the movable piece of plywood underneath. That's what grips it, and we can rotate this now so that we can do faceplate work or bowls, hopefully. All these things need to just a little bit of jar in there as we turn that, so just slacken it off. Now obviously that's going right up on there, so what we can do, we can turn this right round like so, and turn this right round, having said that way. We can now do our faceplate work. Or bowls. And if there's any contours of the bowls that way, hopefully the membrane, the plastic cap on the gland will follow the contours of the bowl and create a flute that follows the contours of the bowl. So I've done some flutes previously, just tested it. It's not too bad, a little bit of refinements is required. Obviously I didn't use stops at the time, I've only just made the stops on the bed of the lathe. But as you can see, it's reasonably okay. I've just got a little deviation there, but I took that in one cut. With this being a wooden jig, it is prone to slight movements, so obviously it can't take big cuts, whereas if it was made of steel or something like that, it could probably be more rigid. So if you want to do flutes, I suggest that that you take very light cuts to begin with, so that the cutter will eventually follow the light cut, and you create a deeper cut as you go along. I have done, I think I've done it somewhere, the faceplate. But anyway, if I want to do some embellishments on this, on the side, here it is. See, I've created some flutes on the side. That hasn't gone too well, simply because I was taking too big a cut, and it's only a small powered grinder, so it didn't like it. What I would do is I'd take very smaller cuts, and like I said, like I did with the flute, and gently coax away the wood until I've got the depth of the flute that I need. I've experimented with just doing some little motif, I don't know what you call them, depressions in the wood. So what I've designed here is a clamp that goes on the back. As I showed earlier, by screwing the cap of the gland, I can adjust the depth of cut, i.e. the gland cap recedes and exposes more of the cutter, so that when I put that, it doesn't matter what contour, I can move that backwards and forwards like that and create a groove. Now, in order for that to be consistent, I can start introducing these clamps here like that and bring that up there, so that I can make it nice and parallel, so I've got the same depth of same movement without it adjusting either way. So and then, but also because I can fix this, and I can fix this, I don't know if you can see it, it's not very clear. Just a moment while I adjust that. If you can just see this stop here, that rides against the beam, and we can create, without moving this, fixing everything here, I can follow a parallel movement there and go in there and then adjust this. I can adjust that, so I can move it forward, knowing that it's parallel, a bit like a drawing board T-square, and I can keep the same distance here, move that, lock that in position, just moved it a bit then. As you can see, it needs a lot of practice and a lot of getting, it's got a lot of foibles to it, a lot of caveats which can only be rectified by using it, which will come later in the video. I'll practice it first, because there's no point me practicing it and you just watching me make a load of mistakes. What I'll do is I'll off camera I'll practice and see what it can do and what it's capable of. But as you can see, I can move that now. Each time I take a cut, I can fix it in position and then move that, so I can create a radius cut, if you can see that happening. And because of these stops, I can create a constant shape going to the stop each time. So each time I take a cut, I relax that. Because that's as a guide, I can shove it in further and take another cut, and gradually introduce different patterns and swirl patterns in it, using the indexing mechanism each time. Obviously I don't switch the lathe on. The lathe is just a support, that's all it's for. The indexing mechanism dictates what the patterns will come up like. So with all those different combinations, I'm going to see what sort of embellishments I can create. It might be a total disaster because it is, as you can see, it's quite cumbersome. I've got to get used to all the nuances of it and see if it's practical or if it's just so flipping complicated and it's not worth bothering with. But that'll come in a later video. So I hope I've explained it reasonably well to you, and I'd love to hear from you about any things that you can think of that might make things a little bit easier, or that I've made something so complicated it's not worth bothering with. I don't know, but it's been an enjoyable project. Obviously it can be improved vastly, but I'll just be interested to see what sort of cuts I can get and what sort of quality I can get from the cutting actions. Okay, so until then, all the best. See you on my next video.